In the middle of the Cold War, a fully operational submarine vanished beneath the ocean. There was no distress call, no confirmed wreckage, and no final explanation. Governments released official statements, investigations were conducted, records were classified. Yet decades later, one question still remains unanswered. What really happened beneath the waves? And why does this mystery remain unsolved to this day? The silent war beneath the ocean. During the Cold War, the most dangerous battlefield wasn't in the sky or on land. It was underwater. While the world focused on missiles, borders, and political speeches, submarines were quietly patrolling the depths, carrying out missions so secret that even today, many details remain classified. Nuclear-powered submarines from opposing sides operated in close proximity, often unaware of how near they truly were to each other. No radar, no visual confirmation, only sonar and silence. This environment created the perfect conditions for misunderstandings, accidents, and mysteries that could be buried for decades, and some of them were. A routine mission until it wasn't. According to publicly available information, the submarine at the center of this mystery departed on what was described as a routine patrol. The crew was experienced. The vessel had recently passed inspections. No major technical issues were reported before departure. For days, communication followed normal patterns. Position updates were logged. Everything appeared standard. Then contact abruptly stopped. No emergency transmission was received. No clear signal of distress was detected. The submarine simply disappeared from all known tracking systems. At first, this was treated as a temporary communication failure. But hours turned into days, and days turned into concern. 3. The search that found nothing. Naval forces quietly initiated a search operation. Officially, the search was limited and carefully controlled. Publicly, very little information was released at the time. According to later reports, investigators considered multiple possibilities. These included a technical malfunction, an environmental issue, a navigational error, or an external incident involving another vessel. But no confirmed debris was recovered. No sonar contact could be conclusively linked to the missing submarine. In a world where almost everything leaves a trace, this disappearance left almost none. The official explanation and its gaps. Eventually, an official explanation was presented. It pointed toward a likely internal failure that caused the submarine to be lost at sea. The case was closed. Records were archived, but analysts and historians later noticed something unusual. Key documents remained classified far longer than expected. Details were vague. Timelines didn't always align. According to experts who studied declassified material years later, some elements of the official explanation raised additional questions rather than resolving them. And that is where the mystery truly begins. The collision theory. One of the most widely discussed ideas suggests that the submarine may have collided with another underwater vessel. During the Cold War, submarines from rival nations often operated in the same regions, tracking each other silently. These encounters were dangerous, and they were rarely acknowledged. A collision at depth would not necessarily trigger an immediate distress signal. Damage could occur silently. Systems could fail rapidly. However, no other nation publicly acknowledged involvement, and no physical evidence was ever officially confirmed. This leaves the theory possible, but unproven. A classified encounter? Another theory proposes that the submarine may have been involved in a classified intelligence operation. Some Cold War patrols were not routine at all. They involved surveillance, cable tapping, and tracking enemy submarines. If something went wrong during such a mission, details may have been intentionally withheld to protect methods, technology, and diplomatic stability. From this perspective, the truth may exist but remain locked behind classification walls, even decades later. Technology at the edge of its limits. Cold War submarines represented cutting-edge technology of their time, but cutting-edge does not mean infallible. These vessels operated under extreme pressure, both physically and psychologically. Small failures could escalate quickly. Redundancies sometimes depended on human decision-making in high-stress environments. While no single system failure was officially blamed, experts note that complex machines operating in isolation for long periods are vulnerable in ways that are difficult to fully predict. This explanation is plausible, but again, it does not explain the absence of clear evidence. Why no definitive answer exists. So why, after all these years, is this case still considered unsolved? The answer lies in a combination of factors. These include incomplete data, long-term classification, political sensitivities, and the unforgiving nature of the deep ocean. Unlike incidents on land or in the air, underwater events are incredibly difficult to reconstruct. Sonar records degrade, debris scatters, and the ocean preserves secrets better than almost any other environment on Earth. 9. What declassified documents reveal and don't. Over time, some documents related to Cold War submarine operations have been declassified. They provide context. They confirm the intensity of underwater operations. They reveal how close rival submarines often came to one another. But when it comes to this specific incident, the most critical pieces remain missing. Whether due to national security, lost records, or intentional silence, the full picture has never emerged. And that absence is exactly what keeps the mystery alive. The human side of the mystery. Behind every submarine is a crew, highly trained professionals operated in isolation, far from public recognition. While this video avoids speculation about personal experiences, it's important to acknowledge that Cold War submariners operated in one of the most demanding environments imaginable. Their missions were built on discipline, trust, and silence. And when something went wrong, there were often no witnesses, only questions. Why this story still matters today. This mystery isn't just about the past. Modern submarines still patrol the oceans, still operate in secrecy, and still rely on many of the same principles developed during the Cold War. Understanding unresolved cases helps historians, engineers, and strategists identify risks, improve safety, and learn from uncertainty. And sometimes, the absence of an answer is itself an important lesson. Similar cases that strengthen the mystery. This disappearance was not entirely unique. During the Cold War, several submarines from different nations were lost under circumstances that were never fully clarified. In some cases, wrecks were eventually discovered decades later. In others, no confirmed location was ever announced. When historians compare these incidents, certain patterns begin to emerge. Sudden loss of communication, delayed public acknowledgement, limited disclosure of findings, long-term classification of key details. Individually, each case can be explained. Together, they suggest how difficult and politically sensitive underwater incidents truly were. The role of secrecy in Cold War investigations. Unlike civilian accidents, military submarine incidents were investigated behind closed doors. Information was controlled. Language was carefully chosen. Public statements were often incomplete by design. This does not necessarily imply wrongdoing. In many cases, secrecy was considered essential to prevent escalation between rival powers, but the side effect of this approach was long-term uncertainty. When facts are withheld for decades, speculation fills the gap, even when no dramatic truth exists. The ocean itself plays a role in why answers are hard to find. Submarines operate in an environment where pressure increases rapidly with depth. Underwater terrain is uneven and unpredictable. Sonar visibility is affected by temperature layers. Recovery operations are extremely limited. A submarine lost at depth may never be visually inspected, even if its general location is known. This reality means that some conclusions are based on probability rather than direct observation. And probability is never absolute. why unsolved does not mean unknown. It's important to clarify one key point. When historians describe this case as unsolved, it does not necessarily mean that no one knows what happened. It means that no explanation has been fully confirmed, publicly documented, or supported by accessible evidence. There may be internal conclusions. There may be classified assessments. But without transparency, the case remains unresolved in the historical record. And history relies on records. The long shadow of classification. Some Cold War documents remain classified not because of what they say about the past, but because of what they reveal about the present. Technologies evolve, but core principles remain. Detection methods, operational strategies, communication protocols. Releasing certain details could still compromise modern systems. As a result, some Cold War mysteries may stay unresolved, not due to neglect, but due to ongoing relevance. 17. How historians work with missing information. When direct evidence is unavailable, historians rely on secondary documentation, witness accounts, technical analysis, comparative case studies. This method does not produce definitive answers, but it helps narrow possibilities. In this case, most serious researchers agree on one point: the disappearance was likely caused by a combination of factors rather than a single dramatic event. Yet without confirmation, certainty remains out of reach. Public interest versus official silence. Over the years, public interest in Cold War submarine mysteries has grown. Books have been written, documentaries have been produced, former crew members have shared limited recollections. Still, official silence often remains. This contrast between curiosity and restraint is one reason the story continues to resonate. Not because of fear, but because of unanswered questions. Lessons learned without final answers. Even without a definitive conclusion, this case influenced submarine operations. Navies reviewed procedures, safety systems were improved, training emphasized redundancy and risk awareness. In this sense, the mystery contributed to progress, even in the absence of clarity. Sometimes, uncertainty itself drives improvement. Why the ocean keeps its secrets. The deep ocean covers more than 70% of the planet. Large areas remain unexplored. Recovery operations are costly and limited. Time degrades physical evidence. Unlike land-based incidents, underwater events may never leave a complete story behind. This is not unique to submarines. It is the reality of the environment they operate in. 21. The difference between mystery and myth. Over time, unresolved cases often attract exaggerated narratives. This video avoids those. There is a clear difference between a mystery based on missing information and a myth created without evidence. The Cold War submarine mystery exists because documentation is incomplete, not because of extraordinary claims. That distinction matters. Why this case is still studied today. Military academies, naval historians, and engineers still examine Cold War submarine losses, not to assign blame, not to reopen political debates. They do it to understand how complex systems behave under pressure, both literal and organizational. Every unanswered question highlights the limits of prediction, what future declassifications might reveal. As time passes, more records may be released. When they are released, they may confirm existing theories, clarify timelines, or simply reinforce what is already suspected. Or they may reveal nothing new at all. History does not always deliver closure. The human need for resolution. Humans naturally seek conclusions. An unresolved story feels incomplete, especially one involving technology, secrecy, and national history. But not every chapter ends with certainty. Some remain open, not as failures, but as reminders of complexity. The Cold War reshaped the world in visible ways. Borders changed, ideologies shifted, technology advanced. But beneath the surface, some stories never surfaced with it. The submarine at the center of this mystery may one day be fully explained, or it may remain part of the ocean's silent record. Either way, it reminds us of a time when the most important conflicts happened out of sight, beneath the waves. If you want to explore more Cold War submarine stories, unexplained naval incidents, and the technology that shaped underwater history, subscribe to the channel. And in the next video, we'll look at another submarine case where official explanations raised more questions than answers.